Let me ask you something. What if the answers to your stress, your confusion, your sleepless nights, were already solved, more than 1,400 years ago?
And what if the people who solved them had less comfort than you, less security than you, yet a peace you're still searching for?
Pause for a moment. Where are you listening to this right now, and what time is it in your city?
Because what you're about to hear is not just history.
It's a message for you right now.
Let's begin with something honest, not something we say out loud, but something we all feel. We are living in a time where almost everything is within our reach. Information is instant. Comfort is normal. Connection is constant. And yet, why does it feel like something inside us is still unsettled?
You wake up, not because you're fully rested, but because you have to. Before your day even begins, your mind is already crowded. Thoughts, worries, pressure, all hitting you at once. You check your phone, scrolling through lives that look perfect, smooth, successful. But instead of feeling motivated, you feel something heavier, something harder to explain.
And it's not always obvious. It's not always pain you can point at. Sometimes, it's just a quiet emptiness. A feeling that something is missing, but you don't know what.
It's that moment at night, when everything finally slows down. No noise. No distractions. And suddenly, your thoughts become louder than ever. You start questioning things you avoid during the day, your purpose, your direction, your decisions, even who you really are.
And what makes it harder is that from the outside, everything looks fine. People see you smiling, functioning, moving forward, and they assume you're okay. But inside, you're carrying questions you don't even have answers to.
Now pause for a second and shift your focus. Go back, not years, but centuries. Look at the people in Islamic history, the early believers. Their lives were not easy. Not comfortable. Not predictable.
They faced rejection from their own families, their own people. They were forced to leave their homes, to walk away from everything familiar. There were days they had nothing to eat. Nights filled with fear, uncertainty, and real danger.
And yet, despite all of that, they carried a calmness, a clarity, a strength that didn't collapse under pressure.
They didn't have what we have today, but they had something we are desperately searching for. Inner peace.
So now the question becomes deeper. How did people surrounded by hardship feel more complete than us, surrounded by comfort?
How did they stand firm, while we feel shaken by things much smaller?
Maybe, just maybe, the problem isn't what we're going through.
Maybe the problem is what we've lost connection with.
Because Islamic history is not just about the past, it's a reflection.
It shows us, not just who they were, but who we were meant to be.
And once you start realizing that, something shifts inside you. You begin to understand
That this emptiness, this confusion, this constant searching
was never supposed to be your normal. Now, let's go deeper. Because once you realize something is missing, the next question is, what exactly did they have that we don't? Not more resources. Not more opportunities. Not easier lives. So what was it?
It was something you can't hold in your hand, but it changes everything in your life. It was certainty. Not hope that things might get better, but certainty that Allah is always in control, even when everything feels out of control.
And this is where the difference becomes clear. Today, when something small goes wrong, a delay, a rejection, a loss, our first reaction is panic. We start overthinking. We question everything. We feel like things are falling apart.
But when you look at the early Muslims, their lives weren't just difficult, they were tested in ways we can barely imagine. They were isolated, cut off from society, boycotted to the point where even basic food became scarce.
Imagine that for a moment. Not just struggling financially, but being completely cut off, no support, no help, no safety net. And still, they didn't lose themselves. They didn't collapse emotionally. They didn't say, "Why is this happening to us?"
Instead, they said something powerful. Allah is enough for us.
Think about that level of belief. Their strength didn't come after the test ended. Their strength was present during the test. Inside, they were stable.
Because their hearts were not attached to outcomes, they were attached to Allah.
And that changes everything.
But they lived differently. Their peace didn't come from what was happening around them, it came from what they believed inside. They knew, with absolute certainty, that nothing happens without Allah's permission.
And once you truly believe that, fear starts losing its power over you. Because even if things go wrong, you know there's wisdom behind it. Even if things don't make sense right now, you trust that one day, they will.
Today, we want clarity before we trust. We want to understand everything before we feel at peace. But Islamic history teaches us something different. Peace doesn't come after understanding everything. Peace comes from trusting, even when you don't understand.
And that's where most of us struggle. We say we trust Allah, but deep down, we're still trying to control everything. We're still afraid of outcomes. Still worried about what-ifs.
But look at their lives again. They walked into uncertainty with full trust. They left their homes without knowing what would happen next. They stood firm, even when the entire world seemed against them.
And they didn't just survive, they became the strongest generation in history. Not because life was easy, but because their connection with Allah was unshakable.
So now ask yourself something honestly. What are you relying on today? Your plans? Your control? Your expectations? Or your trust in Allah?
Because the truth is, the more you try to control everything, the more anxious you become. But the more you trust Allah, the more peace you feel, even in chaos.
And maybe, this is what we've been missing all along. Not more comfort. Not more answers. But deeper certainty.
Because when your certainty becomes strong, your fear becomes weak.
And when your trust becomes real, your heart finally finds rest. There's something about Islamic history that becomes clearer the more you reflect on it. It's not just their patience, it's not just their sacrifice. It's the way they believed, even when nothing around them made sense.
Think about that carefully. We live in a time where we need explanations for everything. We want clarity before we commit. We want to see results before we believe. If something doesn't make sense to us, we hesitate, we doubt, we pull back.
But they were different. They didn't need everything to make sense to keep moving forward. They didn't wait for perfect conditions to stay firm on their faith.
There were moments in their lives where nothing looked promising. No visible success. No immediate relief. No clear sign that things were about to improve. From the outside, it looked like loss after loss.
And this is where most people today would break. Because when things don't go according to plan, we start questioning everything. We ask, why is this happening to me? Did I do something wrong? Is this ever going to get better?
But they asked a different question. Not, why is this happening? But, what is Allah teaching us through this? And that one shift changes your entire perspective.
Because when you stop seeing your struggles as punishment and start seeing them as purpose, your pain doesn't disappear, but it becomes meaningful.
And here's where it gets even deeper. There were times when the early believers were at their lowest. Surrounded by enemies. Facing uncertainty from every direction. With no guarantee of what tomorrow would look like.
And in those moments, their faith didn't weaken. It became stronger. Not because they saw immediate results, but because they trusted the one who controls the results.
Today, we struggle with delay. If something we want doesn't happen quickly, we feel frustrated. We feel like we're being ignored or left behind.
But Islamic history teaches us something powerful. Delay is not neglect. Delay is not abandonment. Sometimes, delay is preparation.
Preparation for something bigger than what you asked for. Preparation for a version of you that's stronger, wiser, more patient. But we don't see that in the moment. We only feel the waiting.
And waiting is one of the hardest tests. Because it forces you to sit with uncertainty. It forces you to trust without seeing. It forces you to believe, without proof.
But that's exactly what they mastered. They believed, even when there was no visible sign of change. They trusted, even when everything around them suggested otherwise.
And this is where we need to reflect honestly. How quickly do we lose hope when things don't go our way? How easily do we become impatient when life doesn't follow our timeline?
Because the truth is, most of us don't struggle with faith in easy times. We struggle with faith when things don't make sense.
But that's exactly where real faith is built. Not in comfort. Not in clarity. But in confusion, in waiting, in uncertainty.
And maybe, just maybe, the reason things don't make sense right now is because you're being guided, not punished. Maybe the doors that are closing are not losses, but protection.
Maybe the silence you're feeling is not absence, but a moment of preparation before something changes in your life.
Because if Islamic history teaches us anything, it's this: what looks like the end is often just the beginning.
And what feels like confusion is often the path to clarity.
So the next time things don't make sense, instead of asking, "Why me?" ask yourself,
what is Allah preparing me for?
Because once you start asking that question, everything changes.
Your pain becomes purpose. Your waiting becomes growth. Your uncertainty becomes trust.
And slowly, without you even realizing it, you begin to feel something you've been searching for.
Peace, not because everything is clear,
but because your trust has finally become real. There's something about pain that most of us misunderstand. We see it as something negative, something to avoid, something that shouldn't exist in our lives. The moment we feel discomfort, we try to escape it. We distract ourselves. We numb it. We look for anything that makes it go away.
But when you look at Islamic history, you realize something completely different. Pain was never seen as the end. It was seen as a path. A path to something higher. Something deeper. Something closer to Allah.
Think about the lives of those who came before us. They didn't just experience pain, they lived through it. Loss after loss. Test after test. Moments where everything they loved was taken away from them.
And yet, they didn't let pain destroy them. They allowed it to transform them. That's the difference.
Today, when something hurts, we immediately ask, "How do I stop this feeling?" But they ask something deeper. How do I grow through this?
And that question changes everything. Because when pain has meaning, it becomes bearable. When pain has purpose, it becomes powerful.
There were moments in Islamic history where believers were pushed to their limits. Moments where they were surrounded by fear, with no visible way out. Moments where loss felt overwhelming and the future felt uncertain.
And in those moments, they didn't run from the pain. They turned toward Allah with even more sincerity. Their du'as became deeper. Their connection became stronger. Their hearts became more attached to the one who never leaves.
And this is where most of us struggle today. We want closeness to Allah without going through anything difficult. We want peace without being tested. We want growth without discomfort.
But Islamic history teaches us a reality that we often try to ignore. Growth comes through struggle. Strength is built through hardship. And closeness to Allah often comes through moments of pain.
Because when everything is going well, it's easy to forget. Easy to become distracted. Easy to rely on yourself instead of Allah.
But when you're tested, when things fall apart, when you feel like you have nothing left, that's when your heart turns back, sincerely. That's when your du'as become real. That's when your connection becomes deep, not just routine.
And maybe, this is something we need to reflect on honestly. Some of the moments that hurt you the most were also the moments that changed you the most. They made you stronger. More aware. More connected.
And maybe, if those moments never happened, you wouldn't be who you are today. You wouldn't have grown the way you did. You wouldn't have turned back to Allah the way you needed to.
So what we call pain might actually be something else. It might be a form of guidance. A way to redirect you when you're going in the wrong direction. A way to wake you up when you've become too comfortable.
And this is exactly what we see in Islamic history. Pain was not wasted. Every hardship, every loss, every moment of difficulty was shaping them into something greater.
But here's the deeper truth. They didn't just go through pain, they went through it with purpose. They didn't complain endlessly. They didn't lose themselves in despair. They remained connected, even in their weakest moments.
And that's what made them different. Not the absence of pain, but the way they responded to it. Maybe right now, you're sitting quietly, listening, and something inside you feels different. Not loud, not overwhelming, but real.
Maybe it's that feeling in your chest that you've been ignoring for a long time. That feeling telling you, you were meant for more than this.
More than just surviving each day, more than just chasing things that don't truly fulfill you. You were meant to be connected, to live with purpose, to walk a path that leads somewhere meaningful.
And maybe, this moment right here is not random. Maybe it's your reminder. Maybe it's your wake-up call. Maybe it's Allah calling you back, gently.
So don't rush away from this feeling. Sit with it, even if it's uncomfortable. Because sometimes, the most important changes start in quiet moments like this.
Close your eyes for a second, if you can. And ask yourself honestly. Where am I in my life right now? Where am I going? And where do I want to be when I stand in front of Allah?
Because one day, this life will pause. The noise will stop. The distractions will fade. And all that will remain is what you chose and who you became.
But the beautiful part is, you still have time. Time to change. Time to return. Time to become the person you were meant to be.
So take that step. Even if it's small. Even if it's quiet. Because every step towards Allah is seen, is valued, is never wasted.
Ya Allah, forgive us for the moments we lost ourselves, for the times we forgot you, while chasing this world.
Ya Allah, guide our hearts back to you, fill our emptiness with your remembrance, and replace our confusion with clarity.
Ya Allah, give us strength like those who came before us, patience in our struggles, and sincerity in our actions.
Ya Allah, don't let our hearts turn away after you have guided us, and grant us a place among those who stayed firm until the end. Both, Ameen.
If this message touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself.
Share it with someone who might need this reminder, just like you did.
And tell us, where are you listening from, and what time is it in your city right now?
Because every story matters and yours is still being written. Both, until next time, trust Allah's plan, and keep moving forward.